Today is finally the day. Microsoft is releasing Copilot for security. In this video, I want to show you how to get started. So how to provision SCUs, secure compute units, so that your analysts can make use of this new technology in your SOC to enhance and expedite their analysis and their threat hunting. All right, so let's get started. All right, very importantly, I want to get started by where can you access it and how can you set it up? There's two ways. The first one you're seeing on screen right now. This is the Azure portal. So just navigate to Azure or portal.azure.com and then enter the service Copilot for security. So you see Copilot for security compute capabilities, all right? So this is what we want to set up. Now in this space, we can set up our secure compute unit and get started this way, or the alternative and preferred method is the standalone portal, which is currently accessed through this URL that you're seeing on screen right here, securitycopilot.microsoft.com. And that's important because this portal is essentially the same where your analysts will be leveraging the standalone version of Copilot for security. And what's the difference between setting up in Azure versus the standalone? Well, if you do it in Azure, you'll have to take a second step to get it all set up from within this portal. So it's a two-step if you do it from portal.azure.com. However, if you set it up and provision it from here, you're going to be straight up sent to the tour overview of the platform right after you finish up the provisioning. So it's same experience, but there's one more step for if you do it through Azure. So anyway, let's go ahead and try and set it up. I'm going to do it through Azure first. So let's go ahead and create a resource. Let me go ahead and enter my subscription, choosing my resource group. I created a dedicated resource group for it. Then I type in a capacity name. So this is the name that the Copilot SCU will be assigned. And then I have to choose the prompt evaluation location. At launch, there will be 4 of them. You can see them on screen: Australia, UK, United States, or Europe. And as you choose them, you see that the capacity region here at the bottom changes. If for whatever reason that region capacity has reached its limit, you might want to turn on this checkbox right here, which states that if that region is busy, your prompt will be sent to another region. Just follow whatever your compliance requirements required of you. And then finally at the bottom, you can see the security compute units. So just choose from starting with 1, how many you want from 1 to 100. 1 SCU per hour doesn't mean that you'll have only one analyst utilizing this service per hour, but rather it's a shared resource, it's a provisioned resource, so you're actually paying per hour. So at any hour that it's turned on, you're going to be consuming $4 per that resource. And how many analysts can use it? Well, how many that secure compute unit can be consumed. You might run out of SCUs in that 1 hour if you only have one of them and if you have multiple analysts. So just be mindful of that. Now the platform will tell us if you're running out of SCUs so that you can increase them at any point in time. And that's totally feasible, totally doable. You can increase, and after you've used it for whatever reason and whatever incidents you're responding to, you can decrease them back to 1 if that's your default requirement there. I also really recommend you have a look at the terms and conditions. This is the Microsoft legal agreement. I'll have a look at that if you have the need to do so. Let me go ahead and click on next. It's going to validate everything. There you go. It's accepted some of these resources. Let's go ahead and create it. Okay, the deployment is complete through Azure. So now if I go ahead, as you can see here, the next steps, it tells me that I need to finish setup in Copilot for security. And this is a required step. This is exactly what I mentioned before. If you do it through Azure, you're going to have to jump into the standalone portal like this. So let me go ahead and click on this. As you can see, it's pivoting to the standalone portal, which I showed you before. So it's exactly what I had shown you. And at this stage, it knows that I've already set it up in Azure. So very quickly, let me shift back to the previous page I had on standalone, right? So just a small caveat. If I hadn't set it up in Azure, I would have to go through this setup right here. It is the same information that I entered in Azure, just through this portal. But I would have continued the setup right from this portal without the need to click on that finish setup and without having to open a second tab. So that's the only difference there between setting it up through portal.azure.com or through the standalone portal. Let me close this page, go back to the page where I pivoted from Azure. And at this stage, I need to select the capacity I'd like to use. this is what powers Copilot, as you can see. So this is the exact capacity that I had created just now. And you can see here, this was created in Azure portal. Let's go ahead and click on continue. Now this here is telling me that my customer data will be stored in the United States. This is because my, customer account is set up with this in it. This is just because of my account, the way my account is set up. Now I'm prompted for a potential help to improve Copilot by sharing statistics and usage. I will leave these on, as I'm always up for improvement. Okay, so at this point, I'm being asked about who can access Copilot. There's essentially two types of access. Contributors, those are your analysts, people who just need to chat and talk to Copilot, but not manage capacity, not manage and administer who has access to it. So these are contributors. So think of your analysts. So contributors just need to access Copilot based on their permissions to Microsoft security solutions and products. As for owners, owners can manage access from role assignment page. And there's two roles in Azure that are owners. Global admin, so GA, and SA, security administrator, okay? And there's a lot more details in terms of access that you can get out of the official documentation. I highly recommend you have a look at that. But for your reference, let me open it up here in terms of authentication and access. So this is the page that talks about what authentication or how authentication works in Copilot for security. What I want to bring your attention to is what kind of access each role gives out to Copilot. And this is important because, once again, you do not want to give everyone global admin rights so that they can run prompts, run Promptbooks, manage plugins, configure settings. You don't need to do that, because if I scroll down here at the bottom, you can see that security administrator can do everything that GA can do in Copilot for security without the extended tenant level capabilities that GA gives them out to, right? So security administrator is the preferred method for owners and people who are managing your SOC and your service. And then for anyone just managing your incidents, security operator or security reader will be enough in order to run prompts and run prompt books. All right, so this is what I wanted to highlight there in terms of access. All right, with this said, let's go ahead and click on continue for the access. And apparently I'm all set. There we go. So from this point onward, I'm told that I can share the security copilot.microsoft.com to my colleagues, and I can manage billing in the Azure portal. All right, let's go ahead and finish this up. This is it. Magical. This is the homepage of Copilot in the standalone mode, right? So, what do you mean by standalone? It doesn't make any sense. Well, standalone means everything you need to do from Copilot can be done from here, right? And that's important because, as you can see here on this page, on the left-hand side in the hamburger menu, we can have a look here at what capacities and what I can do as part of this service. So I can have a look at older sessions. So every incident and each and every incident that I get access to, that Copilot generates a summary for, it generates a session, right? So that session can be continued if I want to dive deeper into that incident, if I want to continue chatting with Copilot in the context of that incident. So these are sessions. Each session, and I'm gonna have a look at that and show you that later, but each session will then be able to be shared to my colleagues. So if I'm part of a SOC team and I want to share my investigation chat with my peers and colleagues, I can just share the session with them. Now they'll have access to the entire chat of the session, so be mindful of that. So that's a great way to manage sessions there, and you can keep a track record of all your sessions here. On the left-hand side here, we'll also have the prompt book. Now prompt books are essentially programmatic ways to execute prompts. So you take in a value from the analyst. So imagine we're hunting for a specific CVE ID. So the prompt book is catered for a vulnerability, right? So that's the field that the analyst is going to enter in the prompt book. And then the prompt book will have a list of pre-made and template prompts that they're going to be entered sequentially so that your analyst don't have to know the process by heart. So they don't have to do that and to know all the process themselves, but rather they can rely on the expertise of a senior analyst or a senior researcher who has done that for them and created a prompt book for that investigation, right? So it's a workflow. It's essentially the automation of specific tasks that Copilot can run for you, and that is exciting. Let me open one of them up here for you. So the threat actor profile. So you can see the input here it's a field. So this field is entered by your analyst. So this is the only field that is required so that we run this prompt book called threat actor profile, and the tags is threat actor. There are 5 prompts in here and Microsoft created it. So if I open it up, I can see what are these pre-made prompts. And as you can see, it's programmatic, right? So when we think of, hey, we're getting a value, an input from a user, such as threat actor name, and we're entering that in this template prompts, that is so helpful because now we don't need to think about what I need to do next in my investigation process in my organization, right? So that's also been documented. That's already been documented as part of Promptbooks. So I can copy this, duplicate, right, and create a variant of it, or I can start a new session that's going to start from this prompt book, for example. But not only can I start sessions from this prompt book, but whenever I'm in an incident in the standalone version, I can actually manually, quickly, and voluntarily access all of these prompt books as part of my session, my conversation with Copilot. So this is the benefit. As you can see here, it's extendable, right? So we can see there are different organizations here, Microsoft, my organization, and my prompt book. So my colleagues can make their own prompt books, share my organization, and so on and so forth. The last thing I want to cover here, of course, we have owner settings, role assignment. Let me open up owner settings. There we go. I can see the subscription ID, resource ID. I can have a look at the opt-in changes that I've made there. And I can see the secure compute units assigned to my tenant. So I can change this here. When I click on change, there we go. I can manually add 2, 3, and apply, and so on and so forth. I can manage billing in Azure. I'm going to have a look at that later. But I can see the usage as well. So when I see the usage, I can see how many prompts I have sent, or how many portions of that SCU have been consumed by my agents. This is important. I'm gonna have a look at that soon. Okay. And lastly, we have settings. So these are just user experience settings. Change the way it looks, change time zone potentially, as you can see here, and files. Who can upload files, and potentially response to bug options as well. Great. So from here, if I want to get started with Copilot, I can just start a new session. So if I scroll down, you can see the prompt experience here, and the prompt experience has a couple buttons here. So the rightmost button is to submit the prompt. So after I enter information here, I can submit the prompt. The second to rightmost is the sources. So these are the plugins. So if I click on them, I can see what plugins I can enable as part of my service. So I can see that by default, this was just created, right? I have Defender Threat Intelligence enabled. So that's part of the service. So we get evergreen and always up-to-date threat intelligence because of this plugin. We also get Defender XDR, Microsoft Entra, Intune, Sentinel, which is in preview, as you can see here. If I click on the settings, I'm going to be able to enter the default workspace name for Sentinel, and the default resource group name as well for incident investigation within Copilot. I'm going to set this up a little later. And as I scroll down further down, you can see other. So these are provided by third party. So essentially, other providers and testers have created their own plugins for Copilot for security that you'll be able to leverage here. So we can see Cyware Respond created this plugin for automated incident response and threat analysis, for example. Netscope reporting API endpoints. Tanium is using that too, or provided something to Valence Security to help fix SaaS risks. So each plugin will have their own capabilities and their own use cases, and they're all in preview at the moment, but just be mindful of that. And you can add your own plugin as well. So you can create your own plugin utilizing Copilot for security custom information, or even an OpenAI plugin based on the .json file that is utilized by OpenAI's plugins as well. So just think about the capabilities and the extensibility of this platform. That's really impressive. If I want to ground some of my answers into my own files, I can do that too, right? So I can upload files like internal policies, as you can see here, and even organization knowledge that will inform Copilot of responses, right? So when we prompt, we can specify the file name or uploaded files, and Copilot will leverage them for the answer. And only me as a user will be able to see my uploaded files, as you can see here. So it just helps me enhance the capabilities of Copilot based on my own organization. Of course, you would do that under your own processes and understanding the need to do so. Awesome. So those are all sources and how you can extend Copilot by a lot of different ways. And then lastly, we have prompts right here on the right hand side. Prompts is Promptbooks, right? So everything I showed you before is there. So we can essentially trigger a prompt book right from here. We don't have to go through the prompt book page to do that. We just can trigger them from here. We can choose one of them. You can see all the steps for the prompt book, and you can enter the input that is required for that particular prompt book. This particular one, I'm looking at Defender Incident ID, for example. But not only that, what I find really valuable is the system capabilities, right? So this, when I click on see all system capabilities, I can see everything and every action that the platform can do for me. And it's pretty extensive and it's categorized. So I can see under incident analysis, what are the capabilities of Copilot for security in incident analysis? What about investigation? Boom, these are here. Knowledge base, and so on and so forth. Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence. So those are known to be capabilities of the platform here, just out of the box, right out of the box. But you can, of course, extend this by multiple ways, be that with a plugin that you create or with a prompt book that you automate. So let me go ahead and make a first prompt. There we go. So I entered my question, what should I be worried about in my environment today? So right off the bat, it starts a new session and it starts evaluating the results. And as you can see, I love that it's pretty transparent in what it expects out of you, right? Good input, because good input requires good output, all right? So there are good practices to prompting, right? So you have to be very mindful of what are good prompts. For example, have a goal in mind, be specific, right? So security related information that you need, enter that in the prompt. Also context. If you know you're gonna need information for a specific platform, enter the platform. For example, state, what is the highest severity incident in Defender 365 today, for example. Expectations, right? So format or target audience you want the response tailored to, especially if you're creating and generating a report for an executive, for example, state so, make it clear. And lastly, source. If there's a known information data source or plugin that Microsoft Copilot could use, make it and list it, right? So these are good practices for prompting that you should know about. Back to the platform. So what has been the response? All right. So this experience right here is something I've been showing to some of my customers lately. So this is the session for Copilot, and let's take the time to actually take it in and understand what's being shown to us. So this is a prompt. I can select the prompt. Why can I select it? Because when I select it, I can delete them. I can resubmit the prompt to get a different answer, maybe, if that didn't satisfy me. But I can pin that prompt to a pin board. When I'm going through a lengthy incident, I might find or have prompts that I want to save for posterity. So save them, because when you share these sessions between teams, you're going to be able to see that, and that's going to be valuable for you. And you can create a prompt book out of this particular prompt as well, right? On the right-hand side here, we have a couple buttons. We have the share button, so I can share this session with a colleague of mine. So I can add their email or name, and I can copy the link, for example, and share that to them. But I can also open the pin board. I have nothing pinned, but if I had pinned this prompt here, it will show up in here in a matter of a few seconds. There we go, summarizing the session, and you can see the pinned item is in there. Boom, that's the pin board. Awesome, so this is how you can interact with it. On the right-hand side, you can perform some of the actions that you can at the bottom one, at the top when you select it. For example, you can edit the prompt, you can resubmit the prompt or delete the prompt. And of course, I can consume the prompt on the center of the screen. So for example, if I expand the steps, and this is brilliant because when we're looking into how generative AI works, we have to understand how the orchestrator of Copilot for Security works, and of course, what steps it took in order to come out with an output. And this makes it really clear. So what should I be worried in my environment today? Well, this is a pretty generic question. I didn't follow the best practices because I didn't tell it what platform to look at. I was not specific. I was not specific to the goal because I didn't say, hey, what vulnerability should I be worried in my environment, or what incidents should I be worried in my environment? These would be better prompts, but I was very generic and intentionally because at this time I can show you that it in its own mind, it actually chose to select Defender Threat Intelligence as the plugin that it needs to prompt to answer my query intelligently. Right, so it's done so. And you can see here the reasoning behind it. Based on your prompt, any other prompts and responses in this session, and Copilot's capabilities, it's decided that Defender Threat Intelligence is the best option to go here. So it looked up threat information. So it's found threat analytics information from Defender XDR portal. So it's looked at created incidents, information created, and alerts counts. And then it prepared my response going through safety checks that I've explained in previous videos as well. Once it's done so, it's actually coming up with a report here, recent threats that I should be aware of. So CVEs, what's a vulnerability affecting gaming service providers. And why is that? Because it's looking at alerts that I have in my environment. I don't have any, but I have misconfigured devices who might be affected by this particular vulnerability. It's also looking at an actor profile here, looking at, again, alert counts, misconfigured devices, vulnerable devices to this particular threat based on the threat analytics that is created by Defender XDR. And it's also looking at a particular tool there for us. After you consume this, you can see here at the bottom the feedback option, right? So how is this response? And that's an important part of the product because generative AI, this is all about human intelligence, not AI per se, right? It's about enhancing the human. So this here was a good answer. But how is this response? Does it look right accurately and factually? Yep, it does look right factually. I can validate everything versus my threat analytics report and make sure that there's no alert counts that match any of these and so on and so forth. If it needs improvement, I could provide some feedback here, or if it's inappropriate, I could state so too and provide evidence of why that is. Now, this is all of the some of the information you can get out of it. But if I want to be more specific, follow good practices, I can just go ahead and ask it. So let me go be specific and ask it, what is the highest severity incident in my Defender XDR portal? So let me go ahead and ask it. Oh, and one thing I didn't mention before, but for each and every step, it actually tells us how long it took the platform to actually process each step. And that's important as well because secure compute units about time to process and how complex your queries are. So when we look at the amount of time that your prompt has needed in order to be processed by the platform, it also means how much you're paying for each and every question you're making. All right, so for this particular question, I specifically called out Defender XDR. Good prompting. So there you go. So at this stage, it actually chose Defender XDR. It processed, prepared it, and everything else. And at this stage, it actually tells me with accuracy. Right, so I know for a fact that this is actually true. Defender XDR has a sendcat hack tool detected in one of my endpoints. It's stating that resolved. That's a high severity, when it was created, when it was updated, so a couple days ago, and the incident web URL. So let me go ahead and click on it. It's also telling me at the bottom here the results of it. Please note that the incident has been resolved. It's always good practice to review the incident details to ensure all the necessary remediation steps have been taken. There you go. So I just clicked on an incident, and I'm going to validate, because I'm a thorough analyst. At this point, I'm pivoting to the sendcat incident, which is absolutely factual. And I can see here the endpoint name, the URL or whatever file was identified as malicious, and so on and so forth. Now this here is the Defender XDR portal, which you must be aware of if you're following me for a little while. And what is important here is that I pivoted from the standalone to the Defender XDR portal, and Defender XDR portal also has another capability integrated with Copilot here. So this is just been enabled as soon as I created that SCU, Secure Compute Unit, right? And that is very important because the embedded experience, this is the second way to consume Copilot, the embedded experience, is always integrated into incidents for all my analysts. So if I logged in as a different user here as part of my SOC, so a different analyst is looking at their incidents, they're going to see these Copilot embedded experience too. And that's going to be beneficial to them as well. And at the same time, they'll be consuming your SCU as well. Be mindful of that. Now there you go. So for each and every incident that I open up, as you can see here, the embedded experience will generate an incident summary and attempt to generate guided response if that is relevant for that incident. Okay. So for example, as you can see here, there's a summary and there's a guided response. I could go ahead and look it all up and validate it's all factual true, but I'm sure it will be. Now, for the incidents piece, I want to open up a different incident to highlight something else. So I'm opening up a second incident, and just as I open it up, you can see here yet another incident summary is being generated automatically and another guided response. And I'm purposely generating this for you because I want to show you what that guided response looks like. It has buttons so that we can interact with it. And the incident summary, well, it's just an incident summary. It just makes it easier for your incident analyst or incident manager to understand what they're dealing with currently and why it's taking so long for your analysts to resolve that complex incident. Now, it takes a little time, right? As you can see here. There you go. It's just generated the incident summary. It tells me in chronological order what happened, and the guided response, well, it had an issue, so I could attempt to regenerate. Let me go ahead and click on it to see if it'll work. And while it's doing so, what I want to show you is the embedded experience options here. So at the top, we have the generate incident report button, which when I click on it, it's going to generate yet another incident report, a little more thorough than the summary. And under the settings, I can have a look at the learn more section. I can close the embedded experience, so it'll close the flyout here, or there we go, there's no actions recommend, right? So this quick note there. Or lastly, what I can do is also do this here. There's the ellipsis icon there for the incident summary, and when I click on it, I can copy this information to the clipboard, I can regenerate this incident summary, or I can pivot again to the standalone version of Copilot for Security. Now, this last button here is really important if your SOC is primarily driven by the Defender XDR portal, because they'll be consuming Copilot for Security in the embedded experience, okay? So they'll be just using Defender XDR, and at one point they will want to talk to Copilot. They want to dive deeper into it. That's where they'll come in here, open in Copilot for Security, and it'll keep that session or keep that investigation conversation going. So it's opening up here the Copilot for Security interface, and as you can see, yep, it's continuing that incident summary that it had generated. Now notice, and this is important, how at the top here we have the icon here for essentially prompts, right? So every time we open up an incident in Defender XDR, Copilot for Security runs this prompt book called Get Defender Incident, right? It's generating an automated response to generate the incident there. And as you can see, I can continue the conversation here. So if I wanted to, I could ask more about the specific threat or the specific machine. So let me ask about the specific machine. So I'm asking, what is the risk score of the machine Caldera, right? So this here is an open-ended question because I should have called out today. I want this information from Intune, for example, for my device manager, or I want this information from Defender for endpoint. Should have been more specific, but I wasn't. But at this point, there we go. It chose Intune, so it's now checking for the information of that managed device, preparing my response. Let's see what it tells me. It's telling me that it couldn't be retrieved, and oh, there we go. That's important. Please ensure that the device is Entra joined. If I go ahead and check that on Entra, that device is not Entra joined, and I can validate this because I know it's a fact. I set it up this a couple days ago. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm opening up Intune and I'm checking my devices, checking my Windows devices, and I can see that, yeah, absolutely, that device is not listed here because it's not Entra joined. It's not joined to my organization. So therefore, I cannot check the risk because it's not joined to my organization. So there you go. Already Copilot told me and showed me how I can improve my environment. Be sure that the device is Entra joined. Very important there so that I can better control the risk, better control the device that way. All right, so this here is a look at the session. Now, let me go back and see what sessions have been created for me, right? So on the hamburger menu, let's go to my sessions. So we're gonna see a lot of sessions here, right? So, and this is everything that I've been showing to you in this video, right? So it started with the first prompt I made, what should I be wearing in my environment today? Very open-ended, not the best prompt. But then, there you go, user recommendations for the incident 118. And from that point, I pivoted to the embedded version of Defender XDR portal. And as you can see here, there's a couple sessions that are created whenever I open up a Defender XDR incident, right? So it always generates the incident summary session, so consumes an SCU. But that same view also generates another prompt or another session, which is guided response, right? And the same thing happened when I opened up that other incident. It generated 2 sessions because each session equates to a specific prompt book that I can continue the conversation from. And each of these sessions, they will have their own consumption of SCUs, for example. So that's helpful to understand how Copilot is working on the background. So this here is my resource that I just created, Copilot for Security. If I click on it, I can see update security compute units. There we go. I can see the update security compute units. Minimum is 1, so I can delete it from here. There you go, as you can see here, that's pretty helpful. But since this is a demonstration environment, what I want to do is actually get rid of it. So what I want to do is actually just delete it. Go ahead and delete this. What it tells me is that the resource and their internal data is going to be deleted, and that's fine. It does keep incident data for a little while, for a few days, so that's mindful for you to have in mind. But there you go. With this, I'm attempting to delete it, so it should not be charged in my demonstration environment. And there you go. It executed the delete command, and as of now, I don't have any SCU provision, no secure compute unit provision, so I'm not going to be charged for the next hour of Copilot for Security. So there you go. So hopefully you found this video useful. You've seen me spin up an SCU, seen how the out-of-the-box plugins work, have a look at the Promptbooks, what the capabilities are at a very, very high level, right? So it's a 15,000 feet kind of view of it. But at the end, I deprovisioned it in order to ensure that my lab environment costs don't go through the roof. But there you go. So hopefully you found this educational and helpful. If you like this kind of video, make sure you leave a like, comment. Let me know your thoughts about Copilot, because I want to be checking it out further myself at a later time. All right, without that all said, see you next time.